Hello everyone, and today we're going to be talking about Benjamin Šeško. I've been really interested by him. From what I'd seen, there was some stuff that I didn't really like, but I had never went like kind of fully in depth of what he really was like into a full kind of like scouting report. So today we're going to have a bit more of an in-depth look. The video is really going to be to inform people of what they can expect from Benjamin Šeško. We'll look at some stats, we'll look at some eye tests and things like that. So yeah, let's just go for it. So coming down onto my laptop here, so he's Benjamin Šeško. He plays at RB Leipzig at the moment. He's played in a couple of different positions per se. He's never really actually in the recent weeks and months under Marco Rose and what's his name? Schlott something? I forgot his name. But yeah, under the new RB Leipzig manager, he's kind of played in this in a wingish position for Marco Rose. So he was never like the out and out number 9. They almost played with like kind of. It's kind of a weird balance because you see Šeško as more of a number 9 than you would as a winger, as you see in this bottom picture. But clearly the new manager also saw that, but they seem to prefer a 2-man striking partnership system. So he now plays as in a partnership. But yeah, he also can play in a wingish position. That's probably because of his dribbling ability. But yeah, let's just quickly go through some of this other stuff. He's 21 at the moment. He's 6 foot 3.99, so he's basically 6'4", which is probably a massive reason why clubs like Arsenal really want to go after him because of his set pieces and things like that. With his heading ability, he's Slovenian, and yeah, he's a centre forward really. Or at least that's where his long-term future lies. That's where his most potential is. That's where he played in Salzburg. Leipzig, obviously, he's kind of moved around a little bit. But yeah, and he can even play kind of like this wing kind of position. It's almost like that attacking midfielder position that we see at like Leverkusen or at Manchester United at the moment with Amrim. So yeah, he can kind of play that. That's more so because of his dribbling ability. I wonder exactly why Marco Rose kind of never put him up front, but it is what it is. I guess they kind of like that 2-man system, and they relied on Openda's kind of more pacey nature to himself, so probably something with that. But he just signed a contract last summer. That was probably due to they didn't want to lose money on a potential Arsenal deal that could have gone down last season. So yeah, they'll probably get big money for him. At least I'm going to guess about £70 million probably. His value at the moment is 65 million euros, but I doubt Leipzig will drop that price, to be honest. So yeah, he's right footed. Sorry, he's willing to use his left foot, by the way. But yeah, we talked a little about this where he usually positions in the lineups. At the moment, he's in this kind of left-hand side of a two-man striking partnership, but he has also played in a cam wingish position before. But most of his runs have been central rather than too wide. So it's kind of one of those little bougie kind of positions he's almost playing. But yeah, just some quick things to go through. There'll be a few sections, but I'll show you some stuff that I've noticed in a couple of the recent games, and then we'll go on to a couple more like extra stuff just to give you a brief kind of general overview, and then we'll do a bit of a summary towards the end if anything gets a bit confusing whilst I'm yapping away. But yeah, let's go through this. So he's quite a mobile striker off ball, especially in that final third. He doesn't really contribute too much defensively. That maybe don't look into that too much because it's tactical as well. Because they've got their hardworking midfield in, you see these names like Haidara and stuff like that. Who, there's no point for him. You're just wasting his energy at that point. So yeah, a lot of the times you do see him pushing the centre backs, which it's something that even Arsenal could look to. It's something they've spotted that they could see that they'd like, to stretch that back line to create a bit of space for their build-up play and whatnot. He doesn't mess up like kind of the simple passes. He does that quite well, But anything like slightly out of that, with, like say for example, as we'll see in a moment here, in this position, he gets out of the tight space quite well, but using his the right side, the outside of his right foot, he just kind of hits it behind the guy, and that's mostly due to him just looking down at the ground. So yeah, there's still room to improve on that position in those situations and stuff. So don't really expect him to be like that. I don't know, maybe Kai Havertz, that, well, let's say the Firmino false nine kind of position where he's linking up and you're going to get a quality link up each time. Not really. He can do a job in doing parts, but nothing too overly ambitious, really. And you can have a read along with any of the extra thoughts that I've got there if you want, so pause it as you wish. But yeah, like this simple scenario, he kind of gets out of sticky position but doesn't complete the pass. But in a more simple situation where he collects the ball, dribbles, and he just has to offload it with his inside of his foot, he does that well. He does that quite well. And from that same position, he continues his run, and he gets a shot off on his left foot. So, it's showing that he's willing to take shots on his left. They might not always work out, but, room for improvement, and it's always nice to see that willingness. I also forgot to say, if you hear like some dropping or whatever, it's raining at the moment, so apologies for that. Well, yeah, I just noticed he kind of like recreated that Bundesliga pause right there. But yeah, he ends up offside actually in these runs. So he's always looking to attack that final third. Kind of similar to, like I've said here, Darwin Núñez, where he's a willing runner, but you're going to catch him offside quite a lot. So there needs to be a little bit more discipline to his game. Another reason why I'm like, Arsenal maybe shouldn't get him, because he's quite raw, and he's kind of going to be in that position where they're going to want a player they can improve and mould themselves as Arteta usually likes, rather than a ready-made product. Because it'll kind of feel like they're almost trying to be there, but they're never fully there, if that makes sense. So yeah, there's still things to improve, to be honest. And just looking a little bit more into the offside stuff, I mean, that's 0.7 per 90 he's got in offside, which is very high. That's, I know, like, well, the obvious player that's ahead of him, that's on like 0.99, I'm pretty sure you can check that, is Darwin Núñez. So yeah, something to work on, but it kind of shows what his game really is like. He's not the hold-up player. He's not like, say, a Harry Kane where he's going to drop back, get the ball, collect it, move, and then go. He can do that in pockets, but his main game is trying to attack that final third and try to attack the box. And yeah, so that shows why he's kind of, catching offside a bit more. But it's something promising. It's a characteristic that, I quite like. But it's more so something that you'll see when the player matures a lot more. And then just doing it to the opposite, like the complete opposite. So on the elite end, someone who does attack the box quite nicely is Erling Haaland. And I mean, look at that, 0.14, and that's in the Premier League as well. So that's just insane. And I guess that could be another point as well to mention, that he's playing in the Bundesliga. It is more open than the Premier League, but then again, you see someone like Darwin Núñez, who maybe doesn't constantly keep in mind the tactical, parts of the game. So if he has the right mentality and stuff like that, there's potential there. But the key thing really is the mentality, the wanting to improve. And to be honest, after looking over him over the last 2 years, he has improved quite a lot. Because the last time I kind of like had a look in depth about him was when he was at Salzburg, and I wasn't really impressed, to be honest. He kind of just seemed like a bit of a Duran, where he was just having a bit of hype goals based off of a bit of space that he got. So yeah, comparing him to a Haaland, it's night and day, even though they have similar-ish play styles. And then yeah, comparing it to someone like Gyökeres, who's got a bit more maturity in his game. Somebody who's not as aggressive attacking that final third. He's more composed. I'd say he's more Harry Kane-like. He's a bit of a good mesh between them. But yeah, look at that, 0.27. So, I think it's something that's going to come with maturity. And it's probably something why I would maybe suggest SESKO could potentially be the better player overall than Gyökeres. But Gyökeres might be what Arsenal needs, given his like kind of maturity in his position, and he's played in the championship and stuff like that. So but anyway, let's continue. This is about SESKO after all. I feel like he doesn't use his size and strength as much as I'd wish for. He's quite tall, like I said, 6'4". He's fairly quick as well. He does use his speed, but I feel like he could get closer to the centre backs a lot more. He almost plays like a winger in a sense. So yeah, I feel like he could use his size a bit more. It probably would help him to get a few more goals, but that's just something I noticed. And a lot of his shots, I would say, they aren't disguised very well. They're quite central, or a keeper gets a touch on their hands with it. So there's scenarios like that where he needs to improve. Until that's when elite clubs really should be looking at him. So yeah, that's something Arsenal or whoever ends up going after him will have to develop. Because he's not a precise finisher, a la Haaland. So yeah, like you can read a couple more extra points. Like he snatches at some chances. He is quite predictable at times, but he does have that X factor about him, as like in that Bayern Munich game. Counter attack is perfect. He sees the keeper off his line, outside the foot, bangs it, and it's incredible, some of this stuff. So those are kind of like those tempting qualities that a lot of teams would like. Just surely about the excitement factor, really. So yeah, just some quick points. He likes to play short passes. He's good indirect set piece threat, and that's my big reason of probably why Arteta likes him. Arteta's obviously been really into his whole set pieces and whatnot a lot this season. And I mean, a 6'4" striker that can attack those. I mean, SESKO's heading ability is pretty good. It's one of his better facets to his game compared to, like, say, a Gyökeres, who doesn't really use his head as much. That's probably a big reason why Arteta would want him. So yeah, he does play off the ground often. He likes to dribble. For a 6'4" player, he does dribble quite well, but then I think he can get a bit overconfident with it, and it can run into traffic and stuff like that. I feel like if I were to compare him to someone, maybe like a Zirkzee, someone like that. Maybe not as fluid per se, but he's kind of got that same kind of mechanics, as like, because he's quite tall. They're both quite tall. You're not going to be as agile, but it is that extra surprise asset to their game. He doesn't really dive into tackles or press much like that. So yeah, don't expect anything like that. But he does attack the space very well when it's on, like counter attacks, open space. That's different to when it's a low block, which he struggles in. Yeah, like I said, strengths, aerial duels, headed attempts, and his dribbling is quite good for his size. Sorry about that. And yeah, his weaknesses, his main thing is, like I mentioned earlier, about snatching some of his chances, offsides, a little bit of his build-up, just in general, thinking of an Arteta team, then Havertz is kind of part of the whole build-up. So yeah, he does need to improve on that. I think he can refine it, to be honest. It is something that will take time. He's only 21, so, by the time he's 26, I think he could be quite efficient at that. His potential is quite high. But the whole downside about him is obviously he's a project player, and play any teams like, say, Liverpool, who've got Darwin Núñez, they're going to be a little bit off put by that. Same with Arsenal fans, because they kind of they need to win trophies right now. Players like, I don't know, even who knows if Saka might end up leaving, but some of these others like Saliba and whatnot, they might end up wanting to go, which Arteta really needs to balance that. What he really needs to prioritise, a better future potential, or are you trying to get trophies now to keep the players that you do have, and not upset them? So yeah, and there's some stats here, but we've basically talked a lot about that. Obviously, because of his likingness of dribbling, he does get dispossessed quite a lot. I would say if Arteta is going to play him, I'd play him just, kind of how Klopp was trying to use Darwin at the start. less so than how Slot is going to use him, where he wants him part of the build-up and whatnot. I'd kind of rather him stay on the defenders, stretch that back line, test them a lot all game, use his physicality on them. I would personally use him like that. I think that's where his best strengths lay. But yeah, there's still room for improvement on a lot of this stuff, and I do think Arteta works well for that sort of stuff. Because even look at someone like Gabriel Jesus. When you first saw him in the league, and obviously Pep's got a lot to do with that as well. But when you first saw him in the first few seasons, he was kind of a poacher kind of striker. But as he's come to Arsenal, he's kind of like his overall play has improved. Holding up play, that typical false nine kind of thing. So yeah, that is something to improve. But depends on how they want to use him. Obviously, Arsenal is always known for it, like their strikers to be quite good on the ball. Someone as simple as Giroud. He was quite good in build-up play. I think a little bit underrated actually in that aspect. So yeah, and his variety of goals. He's not a volume scorer, to be honest. He scores on occasion. I think he actually is like 0.47 per 90, which is pretty good for expected goals. However, the type of goals I'm not exactly impressed with. He doesn't really feel like somebody that Arsenal should go after, due to the fact that I don't think he can take a team on his back and push an attack and get on his own. That's why I think, people like Marco Rose and the new manager, they've put him in this two-man striker system, or three-pronged attack, where it's like, I don't think he can entirely carry an attack on his own, like the way, I don't know, let's say a Haaland, or, some of these players like that. So yeah, it's something he needs to improve. It's something I'm not sure if he'll entirely grow on, but we'll see. I think that's the little difference between him and a Gyökeres. I feel like Gyökeres you can rely on to score. And yeah, I think he's probably got a little bit better kind of mentality that Arsenal kind of need, to be honest. I feel like someone like SESKO, he could kind of like fall in the background of everything. Do you know what I mean? He could like, I don't think he's got that personality to like really like have a proper attacking mentality, keeping everyone up to standards and stuff like that, compared to what I've seen at least in his interviews and things like that. We talked about a little bit of his defensive contribution. It's not great. He's still raw in his decision making. So yeah, some of the concerns, as mentioned. And yeah, just looking at it, I would much prefer him in a team like, say, a Brighton. Some of these lower Premier League teams at the moment, until he builds some of his concerns, really, because he rarely scores against low block sides. He scores a lot of goals at home rather than away. So small things like that kind of show insights into what kind of player you can expect. Can he really put his team on his back and go win the game for you? I don't know yet, but the signs are like maybe slightly passive in that sense. But yeah, I would rather him in, say, a Dortmund or someone like that, where you kind of need him in teams where he's not going to face low blocks. He's more useful in those sort of scenarios, rather than in an elite team where you're going to be holding the ball a lot more. You're going to be controlling the possession, and you're going to be facing low block sides. I mean, that's like a major thing that Arsenal's kind of had a bit of issues with, because they've not had that creativity. They've not had that attacking prowess when they need it, to stretch a back line. They kind of just ended up relying on set pieces and whatnot. So yeah, that's something to think about, really. So yeah, there's some stuff. So like positives. He has great movement. His positioning is good. Good finishing instincts, and he does have a high ceiling. I think he could potentially be better than Gyökeres, but obviously things have to fall in the right places. And he's a project striker. He's not ready built and ready made. He's more refined than, say, what Darwin Núñez was at Benfica. But having said that, Darwin, he scores. He may score in the few games, but when he does score, it's like 1 or 2 goals. I don't think I've ever seen really SESKO score more than 1 goals often at all. So yeah, something else to think about. Like we said, he struggles against these low blocks. You kind of, I think he needs a bit more of that nuance in his game. The slight movements rather than the bursting sprints into the box, like we said, like we saw above. So a lot of in these situations, if there's not going to be a creative midfielder, it's going to be quite difficult for say someone like Arsenal to have this guy. I don't think he'll have much effect. Even stats show that. And yeah, that's another good point that I mentioned, was his limited back to goal play. So, receiving the ball under pressure, I think, if it's, unless it's certain situations where he's facing forward, it's going to be quite hard for him at the moment. He needs to improve that quite a lot. So yeah, his hold up isn't the best. He can get out of tight situations a lot if they're fairly simple, but anything quite complex, he's going to be stuck, and he's almost a little too tall to get out of those situations, in my opinion. So yeah, he does need to improve a lot on this hold up kind of aspects at the elite level. Obviously, he can do it at a good level in the Bundesliga, but when you're talking about the elite level, he doesn't improve to be seen as one of those good Champions League quality players that Arsenal really need if they do want to kick on a bit more. And yeah, you're not really going to expect too much creativity from him. He has made some nice smart passes in the box, so he won't take a stupid shot. He will pass it if it needs to be passed. So yeah, that is another good quality, but those are on occasions. It's not like he's some creative genius or anything. It's just it's an identifications of a smart player, to be honest. And his probably flexibility of improving. And he has improved quite a lot over the last 2 years, to be honest. And he is young. He's only 21 or so, right? Let's see here. Yeah, you can see some of the XG per different tactical situations. Let's see. We've talked a lot about this. You can pause it. And yeah, let's just have a bit of a final overview, to be honest. So I'd rate his agility, athleticism, stamina, all his physical kind of attributes at 7.5. He's obviously got an excellent frame at 6'4", not 6'5". Yeah, he's great on the transition. He can stretch the defenders, especially on the counter-attack. He's a dangerous counter-attacking option. He's a massive threat with those runs. And his ability, let's think of someone like Darwin Núñez is someone I keep bringing up because, he's one of these kind of flop strikers. Someone like him, if you look at the chance that SESKO scored against Bayern Munich, it's something that shows he's of a better mentality, a much smarter player, much cleverer player than, say, a Darwin Núñez. Because to pull off a finish like that, it's not easy. Even though it may look easy, it's obviously easier than maybe scoring against a low block, but if that kind of makes sense, I don't think a Darwin Núñez would be able to pull that off. So it's quite interesting. He has potential. He's obviously still raw. There's a lot to learn, but I can understand why Arteta would like him, but it's still a project player. Maybe Arsenal, in my opinion, I think they kind of need to go for someone proven now. Obviously, that's probably why they wanted an Isak, but it's looking unlikely that Newcastle are going to let him go since they've got Champions League. He's fully refined, but maybe they're learning their lesson from not getting Isak all them years ago, because they weren't sure if he was going to be a good scorer or whatnot. So maybe they're wanting to take that chance. I don't know. Maybe it's a little too late with that, and maybe they do need like we're talking about Gyökeres, or maybe even a João Pedro. I wouldn't necessarily get João Pedro because of his aggressive antics. Let's put it at that. But yeah, all his physical attributes are quite good. His technical attributes, he has shown glimpses, but overall he does need improvement. He can do the good thing is he can do the simple stuff fairly well already. Which is quite, it's a good positive because, you've got something to build off of. There's a base you can build off of. He's obviously a good goal threat. He doesn't need to improve because, like I said before, he's scoring mostly at home. He rarely scores away. And when he does, it's against teams like, I don't know, like say a Frankfurt, where they're not going to drop back as much maybe. I've forgotten. Let me just bring you back up. What did I say? Yeah, Frankfurt. Let's go on. And yeah, he's got great aerial ability. I think that's probably, like I said before, a big reason why Arteta wants him. That whole set piece thing. And it's a big advantage over some of these other strikers like Gyökeres. I know Isak has it in his bag occasionally, but I do think SESKO is better at it than him, and has greater potential. 1v1 attacking, like I said, he does like to dribble, likes to attack the space, but his finishing, he doesn't have a crazy variety of finishing, to be honest. It's a lot of power, it's a lot of, I don't want to say hit and hope, but it's almost like that, because his shots, they're not, they don't feel always clean to me, looking at him, just using the eye test. It feels like the keeper's always getting a touch off him, or he's quite close to the keeper, things like that. So I wouldn't say that they're nearly as placed as I would hope if I was an Arsenal fan. But yeah, it's something to improve. I'm sure he'll improve on that. He's only really young anyway, but because we're looking at somebody who may be who Arsenal would need a Champions League level player. We'll see. And his intangibles, like I said, vertical striker, spacing behind. His decision making is hit and miss, but I think he does usually tend to make the smart option. Whether it comes off or not, that's the difference. Off the ball, he's quite dangerous with his runs. But like I said, it's the whole off thing about catching offside. He does get caught offside a lot, so maturity needs to be in his game. Tracking back, pressing, I think that's a little bit more tactical. And he's quite tall, so I'm not expecting a lot from him in that department, given the fact that he relies upon his game of running and getting in behind. So he's not going to waste his energy on that, and I don't see a point in that. Reading the game, fairly intelligent. He knows when to attack the space. He knows when there's that trigger for that counter. He can see when there's a heavy touch or a loose ball, and he attacks that space, whether it's in support or getting after the ball and getting on it. Work rate, he does work quite well. Obviously, you got to look at his size and whatnot. He's probably going to get a lot more tired than, say, someone a bit smaller. So yeah, I wouldn't be too like looking at it a bit too much, but don't expect him in a fully pressing team, I would say. I wouldn't say he's got many leadership stuff. I've not really seen too much of that. I do prefer Gyökeres a little bit in that sense, but yeah, and like we said about his composure as well, he could improve his finishing in that aspect. But he's fairly brave. I wouldn't say he's fully aggressive, because he will snatch after a loose ball. Let's put it like that. But he won't kill himself for it. So yeah, these are some of the summaries that you can have a look at. And I'd say he's an overall 6.3 out of 10. He's a big project player. He has big potential. But the whole thing is he's a project player. He's still raw. But yeah, maybe you guys can read some of this. And maybe you'll see a little bit more of what you can expect. Hopefully I've given you a bit more of an insight of what SESKO's like. And what you can expect if your club does buy him. Obviously today was more targeted towards Arsenal because they've been linked to him a lot more. Arteta seems to want him, but it seems like Berta seems to want, the sporting director of Arsenal, Berta, seems to want Gyökeres. So there's news about that. That's why I kind of pushed it towards Arsenal more so. But yeah, it'll be interesting to see what happens. I do think Arsenal will probably end up getting him, and I do think it won't necessarily be a bad signing. But is it the signing to win you trophies? I'm unsure of that right now. I think they need somebody more experienced with a bit of character. Someone to grab the team by the scruff of the neck and go for it. It is something that they're missing. I feel like if SESKO was at his prime, like say at 26, like a Gyökeres, then yeah, it makes sense to go for SESKO. But right now, with the squad, with potential players leaving if they don't win again, yeah, I would go after Gyökeres if I was Arsenal. But the upsides are that his aerial ability, his overall play, I'd say, is a little bit better than Gyökeres. I think Gyökeres knows what to do. He's almost in that Harry Kane element where obviously he's not that as good as Harry Kane on the ball, but I mean, he knows what to do. He understands what his limits are, so he's a little bit smarter in that sense. Whereas Sesko's a little too raw. He's a bit ambitious in wanting on knowing what he wants to do or what he can or cannot do. So yeah, so have a read, guys, and you can pause away throughout this video. And yeah, I hope you've had a bit more of an insight of what Sesko is, what he's like, what his tendencies are, and whatnot. And yeah, hope you guys enjoyed that video. Thanks a lot. See you soon.